Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And today I want to talk to you about a little bit about prophecy and that of occultism. Okay. Or I should say, in this case, occultist practices. Okay. A lot of times when you go back through history, you're going to see commonalities, you're going to see similarities within just about every text from grimoires to that of, say, the JCI, the Judo Christian institutions. But one thing is for certain, both sides utilize prophecy. They utilize things like devotional prayers, worship, idol worship, and yet one side obviously denies it. And the graven image of Jesus Christ on a cross, no, that's not a graven idol, which goes against the Ten Commandments, right? Yeah. So both sides literally use this stuff. It doesn't matter if it is a skull, which is utilized in ancient forms of witchcraft, specifically that of Hexa, Greek, which is Hexa, which is Scottish. The occultists, such as the Magi, the Sage, the Necromancer within Greek, Egyptian, Babylonia, Sumerian, and Akkadian, right into the Jewish and Haitian traditions of the Middle East, okay, especially that of Africa. There is a reason why Africa is known as the land of sorcerers for a reason, okay? But let's just break this down for just a minute here. In apostolics tradition, they will go in, they will cry, they will hoot and holler, they will run around the pews, they will sit there and wave their hands around as they're going around the sanctuary, okay? And it is said that when you pray, eventually, between you and your God, there is something called the Holy Ghost, okay? And this is coming from the Christian variation, if you haven't already guessed. Now, I studied the JCI traditions for over 10 years, so I have a good understanding of how they operate. Now, like I said, you have you as the practitioner, your God, be it Satan, be it Orion, be it Jehovah, Elohim, whoever, okay, is way up here, okay? Now, in between, they refer to it as the Holy Ghost, okay? Now, the way it was explained to me by a 15-year veteran of apostolicism, okay, is that it's called intercessory prayer, okay, where you reach that certain level in between where you end and the spirit takes over, okay? Is this not also a form of demonic possession? Okay, you see the commonalities here. When you end and the spirit takes over, okay? Think about this for just a minute. The definition of witchcraft, defined by the Catholic Church: witchcraft, necromancy, divination, okay, and demonic possession, or just plain possession, okay? And then you have a fifth stage in some cases where it is voluntary. This is where the practitioner is actually opening themselves up to the spirit to take over their body, okay? Look at Joseph Nunn for an example. Prime example right there. His rituals are spectacular. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love his altar setups. I mean, they are spectacular. I'm talking gold, black candles, gold candle holders, the whole kit and caboodle. I mean, this guy really puts a lot of time and effort into his commitment and dedication to these spirits that he works with. Okay. Now, what I find interesting is that he will spend up to 3 nights, entire 3 nights of going in for hours at a time, just praying, just invoking them. Okay. Is this not a form of prayer? Okay. You see the commonalities again, the similarities. You're praying to a demon, you're praying to a divine God. Okay. But here's the kicker. When we look at the scientific or the occultist aspect of this, we're looking at things like astrology, okay, planetary alignment. We're talking things like constellation setups, okay. We're talking moon phases. We're talking, the lunar uh, moon phases. We're talking actual practices, okay, going from astrology to planetary to the zodiacs, from both positive and negative, I might add. And then you're going right down into the individual practice of the individual. One of the great individuals that I'm going to refer to here is I really don't know how to pronounce his name because he's from the old world, and I'm talking late medieval period. Gordo Benedetti, okay, Ben Benaniti, however you want to pronounce it. I'm pretty sure he's either Greek or Italian, but his name is Gordo, Guido. Okay, and this guy was an astrologer. He was into astronomy, and he had this friend who was heavily into poverty, and he sat there and played chess with this guy. Okay, like every day. And the thing that I found interesting about this story is that one particular day he pulls out a ship, a model ship, an effigy model. Okay, and he just gives it to this kid and says, "This will bring you riches. Put it in a safe, secluded spot and never reveal it. Never reveal it to anyone. Okay? Don't even take it out. Okay? So the story goes that this kid took it, placed it in a nice secluded area, and over time he became rich. He became basically like Donald Trump, a billionaire or tri-billionaire or whatever you want to call it. Maybe even let's go with McMahon if you follow WWE. Okay, type richness in this old world. And then one day he begins to question his choice. Did he bargain away his soul to Faust, to Mephistopheles, or to some demon? So what does he do? He goes to a clergy. He goes to a JCI clergyman, a priest. And he says, "Hey, this is what happened a long time ago. This is what I did. This is what he gave me. This is what my friend brought to my doorstep. And it has been successful, but my conscience won't let it go. I don't know what to do about it." So the priest, obviously against idol worship, tells him, "You got to destroy it. You got to get rid of it." Okay? Welcome to modern day JCI, right? So he goes home and he takes it. He burns it. He just gets rid of it. And before long, he's back in poverty. I'm talking complete poverty, living on the streets, the whole kit and caboodle. Okay? Now he's really in deep shit. So he goes right back to his friend and he says, "Hey, do you have a replica of this?" Do you can you make me another? I've lost everything because I listened to this priest. I lost everything. So what can I do? Can you make me another? Now the story goes that this occultist, Gordo, literally chastises him. Literally, just bust his balls. Okay, he says, "You're not going to have an alignment like this for another 50 years. For another 50 plus years." Okay. Now what do? It was a one-time alignment within a lifetime, right? Wow. So what is the lesson behind this? This one thing. Well, as Claire Fanger points out in Spiritual Conjurations, is that if this individual paid attention to the ancient texts, if he if he studied all these ancient texts just like these priests should have done, then it would be less about selling your soul and more about knowing zodiacs, about star alignments, about you putting the work in to gaining that success. It has nothing to do with selling your soul to a demon. It was more of the fact that it was effigy magic. It was sympathetic magic, as we refer to it today. Okay, this is where you take a replica of something that relates to this individual's hobby or perhaps profession, and you make them believe what it can do. It's like hypnotic, if you wish. See, if we think hypnotic, then you're programming somebody into believing something that is not true. This is what Christians have done over the better part of 1,000 years. Every grimoire, ranging from Dr. Rudd to Mathers, going all the way back to the Constitution of Pope Honorius, or even that of the Clavicle of Solomon, the Red Book of Appin, all has tales of people going to sorcerers and magicians, black magicians, sorcerers, witches, even, to gain favor with the gods. Now, when you delve into the actual rituals, and you literally delve into these rituals, you'll notice that two things happen. One, a lot of these techniques can befall necromancia, okay? And it's funny because when we look at conjuration, you're conjuring an apparition of a spirit, whereas reanimation is bringing a spirit into full manifestative states, bringing the dead back to life, as they refer to it. But here's the kicker: the method, the bags of smelly herbs, the planetary alignments, again with the astrology, the prayers, the devotionals. All of these things have played a huge impact within occultism, not just Christian belief structures. They just choose to shy away from the latter half. But what we take away from the ancient scrolls, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, such as the Clavicle of Solomon, Homer's Odyssey, the Bouchard, for an example. Today we look at the Bouchard as being a play, the Faustian play. But back then, you're dealing with runes, you're dealing with planetary alignments, pact making, deal making through beneficial alignments with spirits. You go back even further and you see a journey, much like that of the tale of Persephone, or Astarte, okay? Their descent into the underworld. Look at Dante's Inferno for an example. Dante's Inferno states that there were 7 levels of hell. No, not depending on the story, really. Some of them say that there's 9 levels of hell, others say there's 13. But it comes down to who wrote the material or translated it for that matter. Each level was ruled over a specific demon. Okay? Think of it as the 7 crown princes of hell, those who were seen as the bearers of certain sins. Like Lucifer, you have pride. Okay? Satan, wrath. Asmodeus, desire. You see the point there. But when we look at these texts, they show you a journey. They show you what can happen when you descend. You get to your most basic animalistic persona. It shows you that you can gain the same power as the gods and learn from the gods. You consider sorcerers have been known to be watched over by Circe, the mystic in Greek mythology. She taught mankind sorcery, the arts of the mystic. Whereas Hecate is the goddess of witchcraft, necromancy, justice, the dead, ghosts, the underworld. And it's ironic because the further back you go into these tales, these scrolls, these scripts, the more you're going to see the lies of today. But more so, you're going to see the eras in which they were performed. Why were they seen that way? Was it because when we look at the Bouchard or the Dante's Inferno, we know for a fact that these took place directly in the monotheistic time period. This is where Christians heavily dominated the regions. Heavily dominated, meaning they would execute anyone who did not believe their way. You see, in Dante's perspective, it was more of a regime change, meaning political. And he was banished from his home. He was literally cast out and told that if you ever come back, you will die. In some of the stories, specifically that of the play, you see how he was imprisoned. He lost his wife. He lost his home. He was banished and shunned from his homeland. And the bishop literally imprisoned him. So his way was to write the Inferno. In this particular play, it shows the cardinal or the bishop's sins. And he was saying, hey, this is what you're doing, and you're going to go to hell for it. Is this not also considered to be a sympathetic magic through effigies like voodoo dolls, the clay dolls, the tools that we use in sorcery on a day-to-day basis? Just think about this for just a minute. And I want you to think about it because of the fact, going back in time, no matter if it's European or African traditions, there's always those replicas. The imagery, like the ship or that of the doll. When we utilize prayer, number one, a lot of times you're going to see a practitioner of necromancy praying not only to the spirits but also the gods, and they made a libation of sacrificial animal blood. Go into the book of Leviticus, study the burnt offerings, and you're going to see the exact same thing. And Christians said, we'll always tell you, we never did that stuff. Really. This is in Jewish texts. This is in Islamic texts. I mean, think about it. Islam in the Islamic world today, they trade donkeys. They trade, well, not donkeys, but camels. If somebody has wronged their family, or they'll just simply stone you to death. Is that not considered murder? Is that not considered an offering, a sin offering? Or better yet, how about human and animal sacrificing? We know that the Aztecs and the Druids of ancient Gaelic time utilized human sacrificing. You go to Salem, New Hampshire, for an example. It clearly shows an opening underneath the temple where a priest, a Druidic priest, would stand there with a vase and gather the blood from a human offering or an animal offering that was tied down above and bled out. You go down to the temples associated with the Aztecs, the Mayans, even, and you're going to see the sacrificial associations with their sun god, Inti, that they would rip the beating heart, the fresh organ, out of the chest and place it on the altar for that deity. Or better yet, when we go back into the Old Testament of the JCI Bible, the Christian Bible, and you see the scapegoat, the offering of the donkey out into the wilderness, and the other one sacrificed. I'm talking ripped from end to end, their entrails being left on the podium, rotting underneath the sun, the blood in a chalice placed on the altar, the carcass burning on a bonfire. Animal sacrifice. Or what about Abraham in his old name, Abram, in the book of Genesis, where he was instructed by his God, to sacrifice his son, Isaac. Now, the story goes that he was stopped at the last second by the archangel. Another test, perhaps. Another trial. Either way you look at it, it is a matter of faith. It is a matter of commitment, dedication, the follow through within the practice, which has commonalities. Anytime you pray to a spirit, a God, you are in fact praying in the spirit. You are in fact praying in a necromantic fashion. And there are always tools that you can use. You consider Herbert Locklear back in I want to say the late 80s, early 90s, wrote about 17 books based off the Bible in his study thereof. And I found it interesting because he actually has a book just based off all the prophecies. Just all the prophecies. And it's funny because even in divination, necromancy, you're utilizing cartomancy, you're utilizing runes, you're utilizing the talking or spirit board, you're utilizing medium means, such as being a seer, a conjurer, to conjure spirit. This is part of necromantic rituals that you've been led is evil. Or I should say, to be led as being evil. Now, I find it interesting that the more you delve into the past, the more truth is revealed. This is why it's always good not to believe what you're told today. Because if you believe in everything you're told today, you are going to be led into the act of the fool. Because they can tell you just about anything. It's up to you to believe it or not. But it is your sole responsibility to do your own work, your own homework, your own studies into these practices. And as you do, you're going to grow, you're going to mature because it's about self evolution. Knowing is 9/10 of the law, as they say. And that's the fact. Because every necromantic rite, let's say, for an example, going back to the 6th century BE, or BCE for that matter, going forward all the way into the 10th century, you're going to see the image of a necromancer or a practitioner standing in a cemetery, a very spiritual haunt. A bag of herbs standing in a triangle of evocation. A spirit partially manifested right in that triangle. While you, as the practitioner, would stand in the circle of empowerment. Not the protection, it's the circle of empowerment. It enriches your magic, your sorcery, your prayers. And you would have that offering, the chalice full of blood mixed in with other things to make this libation. And while you are praying to the God, the macrocosm, and the microcosm, the lesser God or little God, you are praying to these spirits and to these gods. While this spirit, this partially manifested entity, is ingesting it to empower them. Either way you look at it, both sides are utilizing the same techniques. And yet, everybody's in subdivisions, encampments. Why? Right and wrong, black and white? No such thing. Going back in history, you could actually see this. No matter if you're into necromancy, hermetic magic, or even that of, say, for an example, shamanism. Look at the dark or black shamans. Look at the Buddhists going from, say, Indonesia or, say, Siberian, Mongolian, Indian, going all the way down into Asian cultures. Look at the different techniques that they used, and you're going to see this. It's not any of this other crap that they tell you today. That is why you have to know what you're talking about. When you practice it, it's called experimentation. I mean, look at Richard Keffer's book on the manual for 15th century necromancy. Has a lot of different techniques. Just in that, within bringing forth an entire army or creating a, how should I say this, a castle, even a feast, which goes along with the illusionist. And you look at what Chris Angel did, the Mind Freak, or that of David Blaine, back when he first began. You're going to see the same things. All right? So, look at the science behind everything. Look at the religions, look at all the techniques, and you're going to see a lot. Seek out the truth for yourself. That's how you will evolve personally.